The morning has not yet broken into full light. Two armies stand arrayed on the plain of Kurukshetra. Thousands of men, horses, war elephants, chariots, and the air is suspended between silence and catastrophe. On one chariot, white horses standing still, a flag bearing the image of Hanuman rippling in the pre-dawn air. Two men wait. One holds the reins. The other holds a bow called Gandiva, a divine weapon earned through years of extraordinary discipline. The battle has not yet begun. This is the paused moment, the held breath, the last instant before everything becomes irreversible. And it is in precisely this interval, not in the heat of combat, but in the stillness before it, that the entire Bhagavad Gita finds its origin. The Gita opens not with Arjuna and Krishna, but with a blind king in a distant palace. Dhritarashtra, sitting in Hastinapura, asks his minister and charioteer Sanjaya to report what is unfolding on the sacred field. The question arrives in the very first verse. BG 1:1. Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsava. Mamakaha pandavaschaiva kim akurvata Sanjaya. O Sanjaya, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do when they assembled, eager for battle, in Kurukshetra, the field of Dharma? It is a question steeped in guilt. Dhritarashtra is blind from birth, and the tradition reads this blindness as both physical and spiritual. He knows the kingdom was taken from the Pandavas unjustly. His attachment to his own sons, the Kauravas, has made him deviate from virtue. His first word is mamakaha, my people, my sons, and it is a telling word. The entire catastrophe was born from that possessive clinging. Sanjaya, granted divine sight by the sage Vedavyasa to witness and narrate the war across distance, begins his account. The Kaurava prince Duryodhana surveys the opposing army and approaches his guru Dronakarya to describe the battlefield commanders. Duryodhana's speech in the opening verses carries a thin bravado over an undercurrent of anxiety. Then the conches are blown, Bhishma from the Kaurava side, then Krishna blowing his Panchajanya, then Arjuna his Devadatta. The sound fills the sky, splits the air, and the time for deliberation is apparently over. Arjuna, the third of the 5 Pandava brothers, is no ordinary warrior. He is the son of Indra, king of the gods, born through Kunti. He has been trained in archery and warfare by the master Dronakarya. He carries the celestial bow Gandiva. He has earned the name Savyasachi, ambidextrous archer, and Gudakesha, conqueror of sleep. He is, by every measure, the finest warrior on that field. And it is this man who, at the moment of his greatest readiness, asks Krishna to drive the chariot to the center, to the midpoint between both armies, in front of Bhishma and Drona and the assembled kings, so that he may see who stands against him. Krishna drives him there. This is the only action Krishna takes in chapter 1. He speaks nothing, teaches nothing, explains nothing. He simply drives the chariot to the center and waits. And then Arjuna looks. What he sees is described with quiet precision in BG 126 to 127. There, within the midst of both armies, Arjuna sees his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, his fathers-in-law, his well-wishers. He sees Bhishma, his granduncle, the elder he has revered all his life. He sees Drona, his guru, the man who shaped his hands around the Gandiva. He sees cousins, kinsmen bound to him by blood and marriage and the long intimacy of shared meals and shared childhoods. The text gives us a single Sanskrit word for what happens next. Svajanam, his own people. Svajana, one's own. And Arjuna uses this word 4 times across the verses that follow. The repetition is not accidental. It is the text showing us exactly where the wound is. At BG 128, his body begins to speak what his mind has not yet admitted. Drishtvemam svajanam, Krishna yuyutsum samupastitam, sidanti mama gatrani mukamcha parishushati. O Krishna, seeing my own kinsmen arrayed for battle here and intent on killing each other, my limbs are giving way and my mouth is drying up. The body knows before the mind agrees. The limbs go weak, the mouth dries. Then in BG 129 it deepens. Vepatushcha sharire me, romaharshashcha jayate, Gandivam sramsate hastat, twak chaiva paridahyate. My whole body is trembling, and my hair is standing on end. My bow Gandiva is slipping from my hand, and my skin is burning. The Gandiva slipping from his grip is not a small detail. This bow is his identity, his trained purpose, the extension of his nature as a warrior. It slipping from his hands is the text's way of showing that Arjuna's warrior self has in this moment dissolved. And in BG 130, the disorientation becomes complete. Na cha shaknomi avastatum brahmativa cha me mana, nimittani cha pashyami viparitani keshava. I am now unable to stand here any longer. I am forgetting myself, and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna. Consider what is happening here. A person who has spent years preparing for exactly this moment, who has the skill, the weapon, the position, the righteous cause, and who is now unable to stand upright. The tradition's word for this state is vishada, from v and shad, to sink down. Vishada means despondency, dejection, the sinking of the self. The first chapter of the Gita is traditionally titled Arjuna Vishada Yoga, and the paradox of that title is deliberate. Vishada as yoga, the sinking as the beginning. Without this collapse there is no teaching, no opening, no Gita. The crisis is the door. But the text does something even more interesting than describing the physical collapse. It shows us the next step. Arjuna begins to argue. Once the body finishes its honest confession, the mind steps in with reasons. From BG 131 through 146, Arjuna delivers an extended monologue constructing 5 interlocking arguments for why he should not fight. No pleasure can come from victory. Killing teachers and elders is sinful. Greed drives the Kauravas, but should not drive us. Killing destroys Kula Dharma, the spiritual and social traditions of the family, and the destruction of Kula Dharma leads to Varna Samkata, the mixing of social order, and ultimately to cosmic chaos and ruin. At BG 139, he even quotes scripture. Kulakshaye pranashyanti kula dharmaha sanatanaha. Dharme nashte kulam kritsnam adharmo abhibhahati yuta. With the destruction of dynasty, the spiritual family tradition is destroyed forever. And when spiritual practices are destroyed, unrighteous acts predominate the entire society. Commentators, including Shankara, have noticed something precise here. Arjuna is applying the ethics of Kula Dharma, family duty, to a situation that calls for Kshatriya Dharma, the warrior's specific duty in a just war. He is not wrong about Kula Dharma in general, but he is applying it to the wrong category of situation. This is what the tradition calls moha, delusion. Not stupidity, but the warping of perception caused by raga, attachment. Arjuna is not lying. He genuinely believes his arguments, but he is using real ethical principles as instruments of avoidance. The tradition names this exactly. Grief, shoka, comes first, then moha, delusion. And moha produces reasoning that sounds principled, but is at its root the mind clothing attachment in the language of virtue. Think of someone who has been estranged from a sibling for years over something real, something genuinely harmful. A moment arrives when reconciliation becomes possible, a parent's illness, a shared loss, and the person finds themselves unable to reach across. They do not say, "I am afraid." They say, "It wouldn't be genuine. The timing isn't right. It would only confuse things." Every reason they give has some truth in it. And every reason is, underneath, the voice of grief and attachment, organizing itself into the shape of principle. This is the psychological anatomy the Gita is mapping in Chapter 1, and it closes with shattering economy, BG 147. Evam uktvarjuna, sankhye ratopasta upavishat, visrijya sasharam chapam, shoka samvigna manasa. Having spoken thus, Arjuna, with his mind perturbed with grief, cast aside bow and arrows, and sat down on the rear end of the chariot. The closing compound is everything, shoka samvigna manasa, the mind shaken by grief. Not logic, not principle, Grief. The arguments were grief's children. The body knew it first, then the arguments arrived to explain what the body had already confessed. Krishna, who has been silent through this entire chapter, will speak in the next. But the hinge between the collapse and the teaching is a single verse at BG 2.7, Arjuna's formal self-diagnosis and surrender. Karpanya dosho pahata svabhavaha, prichami twam, dharma samudhacheta. My nature has been overwhelmed by the weakness of karpanya, and my mind is bewildered about duty. Karpanya, from kripana, a miser, describes someone who has the means to give, but withholds. Arjuna has the capacity, the training, the right, and he is withholding it. He names this as a dosha, a fault, a defect. Then, Shisyas teham sadimam twam, prapannam. I am your disciple. I have surrendered to you. Instruct me. This is the moment the Gita's teaching begins, not because Arjuna has resolved his confusion, but because he has stopped insisting that he already understands. A person whose nature has been overwhelmed by grief and delusion, who names it honestly and asks for guidance, that is the starting point the text considers necessary. There is a particular kind of night that comes, usually in a person's middle years, when something that used to organize their sense of self no longer holds. A marriage fraying past the point of familiar repair. A child becoming a stranger. A vocation that once felt like purpose, now feeling like a borrowed coat. In those nights, the temptation is to reach for reasons, to build an argument for paralysis, to mistake the grief for the wisdom. The Gita's first chapter does not resolve this. It witnesses it, names it, holds it. And what it offers is not a resolution, but a posture. To name the karpanya, the smallness, the withholding, and to ask, genuinely, to be instructed. What to carry forward into your actual day. The crisis does not need to be conquered before the teaching can begin. It needs only to be named honestly. The Gandiva slips from the hand. The mouth dries. The arguments multiply, and the mind trembles with grief. That trembling, held honestly, is the first yoga. The chariot stands at the center. The armies wait, and the teaching has not yet begun.